Narcissistic overinvestment, psychoanalytic meaning. 1. Basic concept. In psychoanalysis, narcissistic overinvestment means directing excessive psychic energy, libido, toward something that serves the self's identity or self-esteem, rather than toward another person as a truly separate being. It's not narcissism in the casual, self-absorbed sense. It's about where one's emotional energy is invested and why. 2. The mechanism. The ego, self, can invest libido in objects, people, causes, ideals, work, etc. Itself, self-image, fantasies, ambitions. A healthy balance allows us to love, lose, and adapt. But when the ego invests too much in an object because it unconsciously serves as an extension of the self, that's narcissistic overinvestment. The other becomes less a person to love and more a mirror to secure one's fragile self. 3. Common expressions. Over-idealizing a lover, therapist, mentor, or child is the key to one's worth. Feeling shattered or enraged when the other disappoints, withdraws, or individuates. Pouring one's identity into roles, achievements, or relationships to avoid emptiness. Being unable to mourn because letting go would feel like losing part of oneself. In Freud's terms, this is when object libido collapses back into ego libido, resulting in withdrawal, depression, or rage. 4. The deeper function. This overinvestment often defends against primitive loss or abandonment, early narcissistic injury, fragmentation anxiety, fear the self will dissolve without the object, depressive guilt, keeping the object alive by overcaring or overcontrolling. So it's not vanity, it's a desperate attempt to preserve cohesion. The narcissistic aspect is about self-preservation disguised as love. 5. Therapeutic meaning. In analysis, we explore what the overinvestment protects against, how dependency and idealization obscure the other separateness, how to withdraw psychic energy enough to tolerate frustration, difference, and loss, which leads to object constancy and mature love. In short, narcissistic overinvestment is when love becomes a mirror. The self pours so much into another, or into an ideal, that losing it would mean losing oneself. Psychoanalysis helps transform this from possession into presence, from need into relatedness. And now, here are clinical and romantic examples where narcissistic overinvestment reveals itself. 1. In the clinical relationship, transference and countertransference. The core dynamic. In psychoanalysis, narcissistic overinvestment shows up when the patient invests the analyst with a disproportionate amount of psychic energy, not as a separate subject, but as a narcissistic extension or mirror. The analyst becomes the idealized parent who finally understands, the mirror that restores cohesion to a fragmented self, the proof that one is special, worthy, or lovable. Signs of the transference. The patient feels fusion with the analyst's mind. You understand me like no one else. Intense longing for the analyst's approval or constant reassurance. Rage, shame, or collapse when the analyst appears distant, neutral, or unavailable. Difficulty tolerating separations, holidays, breaks, lateness. What's happening is a repetition of early psychic trauma. The patient unconsciously invests the analyst with the task of repairing the early failure of mirroring, holding, or recognition. When the analyst cannot or does not fulfill that fantasy, it can feel like abandonment or annihilation. The analyst's task. The analyst must hold the projection without rejecting or gratifying it too literally. Gradually help the patient differentiate between the self's needs and the other subjectivity. Interpret not the affection itself, but the function of the overinvestment. What does this love or anger protect you from feeling? In time, the patient begins to internalize the analyst's steady, non-fusional presence, developing the capacity to love others without using them as mirrors. Red Heart 2. In romantic relationships, the illusion of fusion. In love, narcissistic overinvestment can masquerade as devotion, passion, or soulmate connection, but the emotional architecture is different. The beloved becomes the vessel for the self's unmet longings. You complete me really means you stabilize me. When a relationship falters, it's not just heartbreak, it's ego collapse. The loss of the beloved is felt as the loss of self. Manifestation. Idealization. The partner is perfect, godlike, necessary for survival. Possessiveness. Fear of losing them feels existential. Overfunctioning. Doing everything to keep them happy, as if keeping the self intact. Emotional volatility. Rapid swings between worship and devaluation. The unconscious fantasy. If you love me perfectly, I will finally exist. What's beneath it? This overinvestment often originates in early relational trauma, where love was conditional, inconsistent, or fused with shame. The psyche learns, I must hold on tightly to love, or I will disappear. Thus, the lover is both the savior and the threat, the one who can make the self whole or destroy it. The healing movement. Through therapy and often heartbreak, the individual learns to recognize the difference between love and merger, reclaim the capacity to self-soothe without needing the other to mirror worth, tolerate loss and ambivalence, the marks of mature relatedness. This is the shift from narcissistic overinvestment, authentic attachment. Love ceases to be a form of self-repair and becomes a form of mutual recognition. In summary, narcissistic overinvestment is love born from the fear of vanishing. In therapy and relationships alike, it asks us to hold the paradox, to care deeply without collapsing into the other. Healing begins when we no longer need the other to keep us whole, but choose them freely from our own wholeness.